So, that recording in progress.
Yeah,
Without
okay.
further ado, as everyone knows, well, they should do by now if they've been catching these lives, that I'm working on something behind the scenes to bring all my lovely, gorgeous experts closer to the ladies in the group. So, because not everyone can afford one-to-one coaching, so this is an opportunity to get my experts closer to the group. So that's all coming in the pipeline. You'll hear more about it as I get more organized. But in the meantime, I want to reintroduce my lovely experts. For anyone who knows you, to remind them what you do. And then for anyone new who's joined the group since I last spoke to you, Sandy, to remind them what you do. Give us a little bit about your background, because I know you got a really massive, wonderful story of how you got to where you are, but in a nutshell, how you got to do what you do and how you help women. Because I know it's, when we're going through our hormone fluctuations at the moment and we've got teens going through the same fluctuations, life can be quite difficult at home. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to you to tell us what it is
Okay.
that you do.
Thank you, Joe, and thank you for having me. So basically, I'm Sunday, I'm French, and I am a full-time teacher, language teacher, but also a parent and teen coach. So I help parents and teenagers reconnect basically when their relationship is either damaged, broken, or when they really, really feel distant. So what I do is I basically help parents help their teenager transition from the teenagers to adulthood. And I share a lot of strategies, which is mainly about active listening. That is my first one. And then also communication. In those strategies, we learn how to set clear boundaries, build trust, and also speak the truth. Um, how to also apologize authentically, because I found that this is something that is really missing in some families. Every strategy depends on the family dynamic,
Mm.
because um, each teenager is different, and also they go through puberty, so their brain is still not fully developed. Their brain doesn't develop until fully develop until their late 20s actually. So we teach them how to foster confidence and also independence, because that is really really important. But we do this while making sure that the teenagers know that their parents are there no matter what happens. So even when they are facing challenges and there are a lot of conflicts in the house, what we want is we want to make sure that children know that parents are there and love them unconditionally no matter what. Because that's really really important for teenagers. When teenagers feel that parents are kind of absent, then in their mind they will think that parents don't love them, and then they will try and find validation somewhere else. And generally the validation somewhere else ends up in having the wrong influence from peers, from other adults as well. So we want to recenter them and make sure that they work together as a unity rather than working separately. So we help them identify exactly who they are, their beliefs, their values, in order to build a really, really strong connection. And the reason I'm doing this is it's because of my story. So
Yeah.
basically, for me, I grew up in foster care, so never had a family of my own. And at the age of 18, I was kicked out on the street. So I've had to learn the hard way. And I was a very rebellious teenager, full of anger at some stage. But I did really well. I came out of it, I did really well. Then I moved to UK. From France, I moved to UK, where I met my daughter's father and went through physical abuse there. And so after 5 years we separated, but I stayed in UK until my daughter reached 10 and a half years old, because I knew how challenging and how hard and how difficult and how sad it was to grow up without a family. But then when my daughter Nikita reached 10 years old, I met somebody else, British, but who was working for NATO in Belgium. So we decided to move over there. And from a 10th birthday until a 16th birthday, everything was fine. Sorry. We had a really, really strong bond. She didn't have a lot to do with her father. The communication was very, very poor. But I kept going back, driving back from Belgium to UK every weekend to make sure that she could see her father. But then when she reached to about 14, 15 years old, I stopped it because I started getting really tired of driving.
Yeah.
We used to leave on Friday afternoon, coming back Sunday evening, and it was like 8 to 10 hours to go, 8 to 10 hours to come back. So,
Every
and
weekend.
sorry.
Every weekend.
Every weekend, yeah. Yeah, every weekend. I
Wow.
did that non-stop for 3 years, and then I started reducing. About the fourth year, I started reducing to every 2 weekend, and little by little, I just stopped at the end. And I stopped when she reached about 16 years old because her father never came to us. So I was like, okay, there is a point where it's got to stop.
Yeah.
So, but that unfortunately led to something bigger. When Nikita reached 16 years old, she met a first boyfriend, and things started going pretty bad
Mm.
because she was so much in love. Everything was wonderful for her. I accepted him, that was not an issue. But his family was struggling and they ended up being on the street. So his family asked us to host him while they could find another house, which I did. But during this hosting moment, he went through my personal belonging. He started stealing from us. So then I was like, okay, you have to go. But when I told my daughter that he had to go, and I faced him with what happened within the house, we started facing a lot of challenges. And then my daughter turned around and said, Mom, he needs to stay with us because he's got nowhere to go. And I was like, well, he still has his mom and dad. He still has his brother. He still has a place to go. But we cannot keep hosting somebody who is invading our privacy and going through our personal belonging. This is no longer okay. So on that night, and we went from having a really, really, really strong bond into her running away in a fraction of second. I will never, never forget that night. I basically said to her, I said, okay, when his brother comes and pick him up, then after that we'll go and have dinner and then we can discuss about it, later on. But by the time I went back to tell her that dinner was ready, I couldn't find her anywhere in the house. She had gone.
With him.
Yeah. But I didn't know. I didn't know she'd gone. I looked everywhere in the house. It was dark, and it was about 7:30 in the evening on that day. And I stayed up all night sending messages everywhere, going on Facebook. I wasn't a fan of Facebook at that time. I wasn't using Facebook. Um, and sending messages to everybody. Nobody had seen her. I did not sleep that night at all. I
Yeah.
didn't know what to do. I rang up the police. They told me that I needed to wait 24 hours and so on. I felt sick to my stomach. And then she came back. I think it was about 48 hours after. She turned up like if nothing had happened.
Mm.
If nothing had happened, she was just sat in her bedroom. She came back, went to her bedroom, sat in her bedroom, and that was it. So I was completely devastated by what happened. And we didn't argue on that day. I just tried to find out what the reason why she did what she did. But in her mind, she didn't do nothing wrong. I was the one who did something wrong because I'd kicked him out in brackets. And then after that, little by little, our relationship took a completely different turn because she started skipping school.
Mm.
So that was pretty bad. Then she started smoking marijuana because he was smoking marijuana. And then little by little, her health started really deteriorating. The bond that we had no longer existed. We were constantly arguing. And then at one point, she became extremely violent towards me as well, physically violent, verbally abusive. I had her because the violence lasted for about nearly 2 years. So she was basically biting me, punching me, throwing things,
Mm.
um, and I could not. I could, for me at that time, I could not eat back, because if I would have ate back, either her or me would have ended up in hospital basically. So I just allowed it to happen. But at some stage, towards the second year, I was like, enough is enough. So I took her down to the police station to have her arrested, and yeah, the police refused. The police refused to arrest her. They sat us down together. I was sat here, she was sat there, and it was a policewoman and there was a policeman. He was just standing there witnessing what was happening. But the policewoman was saying, your daughter is not 18 years old yet, and if you are reporting her, then this is going to follow her for the rest of her life.
Mm.
So please do not do that. I'm sure that you can work it out. You look like, there is some love between you. I can see that. So anyway, we went through this for quite a lot of months. Never reported her, but then I started going through psychologist. So we got some psychologists to help us. Unfortunately, the psychologist saw me as an unstable mom,
Mm.
because I'd moved from France to England and then England to Belgium. That was what
Well,
they
you
were
get the
saying.
blame. Were
Yeah,
they blaming you for her behavior?
yeah, kind of. But for me, it was like, well, what does France has to do with this? Nikita was not born in France. Nikita was born in UK. So from that moment, what I saw was that Nikita was very good at getting people on her side. Basically, she was very, very good at it. And then I was the single mom doing different jobs. Well, actually at that time I was doing three jobs, you know and moving from places to places, where basically the psychologist saw that as unstable, then asking me in front of her if she was desired, if
What's
she
that
was
mean?
desired so if Nikita was planned basically.
Oh,
So I turned around and I said, well, no, she was not planned, but it happened, but then she was there and that was it. And then the fact that I said that she was not planned made them believe that, basically the reason Nikita was behaving this way was because of everything that happened, the fact that I moved, and also the fact that, she was not planned.
that's rubbish, isn't it? Oh my
It,
God,
it
that's
was.
horrific.
Yeah.
Mine
Yeah.
wasn't planned. Does that mean
And
every child that wasn't planned in the world's going to rebel? That's
I
ridiculous.
know. I know. So at that moment, I thought, okay, this is not going to work. So we stopped the psychologist, but one, because there were three, where they were a team, so they were taking turns. And one of the psychologists continued to see Nikita secretly. So that went completely against my own values. So that created more of a conflict, because for me, this lady had nothing to do in her life. At that time, Nikita reached 18 years old. So we went actually, because we weren't paying for the psychologist. It was what was given to us at the time to help us out from the government. So then I refused to continue, and I started talking to the psychologist by saying, you are not a mom. The psychological, stuff is now done. It's finished. Nikita is 18 years old. Allow me to be a mom and allow me to deal with whatever is happening. So then after that, Nikita, we started getting a little bit closer. Nikita started getting a little bit better, and the relationship with that boy ended. So I was like, yes, finally, that lasted 3 years in total. And unfortunately, she jumped from that relationship to another one.
Just as,
And this boy just came out of jail.
oh God.
So we were back in a roller coaster again. Uh, I gave the boy a chance, but Nikita started coming back home when she was, every time she was going to him, she was coming back home looking, her face was looking very miserable, her eyes were black. So she was smoking more and more marijuana. School was no longer an option. Everything just went downhill basically. We started arguing even more. Basically we were arguing every day. Then He came out of jail, he went back into jail, came out again, went back in, and he was like this for again 3 years. And then Nikita asked me to host him, so he could come out of jail, but he had a tag on his ankle, and he needed a guardian to look after him. So Nikita asked me to be his guardian. So I basically turned around, and that was a no, a straight no. I work with NATO, I work with children. I cannot take that responsibility, and I do not want to take that responsibility. So at that time, I was just about to go on holiday for 6 weeks during the summer school holiday, and Nikita had to work, so she did not want to come with me. She could not come with me, but deep inside, she did not want to come with me so that she could be next to him. So he came out of jail. I think it was the first or the second week I was away, and she put him back home.
To your house.
Yes, and basically it was in those days was I had a very old iPhone, and she was using my iPhone from time to time to go through Messenger, but I was not using Facebook or Messenger. And as I was away, I could see all the messages between them going through my phone. And I started reading them, and then I was seeing them being at home. She was sending pictures to a friend saying that, look, he's cooking. And he was in my house in boxes, no t-shirt, no nothing, and he was cooking. So I started getting extremely frustrated, very, very angry, that she did that behind my back. So I'd rung up the police, rung up the landlord of the house to have him kicked out. But because they were both 18, I could do nothing until I came back. So during the time I was away, I could choose to come back, but at that time the plane was really, really expensive. So I decided to just carry on with my holiday and deal with that when I come back. But the week before I came back, I messaged her and I said to her, I said, listen, I says, I know that he's in the house now. So I'm going to give you two options. The first one, he goes, and then you and I, we can work whatever we need to work on. The second one, if he's not going, the both of you are going, and she chose to go. So by the time I came back of my holiday, they'd gone. And then she refused to see me. So we didn't see each other for 3 months. She moved into a house that was absolutely catastrophic. But then he went back to jail. So she started coming back slowly at the weekend, and me myself, I started to really struggle dealing with all of that. So I found at that time, I found a coach which we know, Jojo, and she was doing a mindset 5-day challenge. So I went on to it, and then I signed up for the mindset coaching, and that helped me a lot. And then I moved on to the NLP, and then I did basically a lot of courses with Jojo. But what really helped me was the NLP. And throughout the NLP, I also started doing mindfulness coaching, so I qualified for all of them. And then I started putting everything that I was learning in practice with my own daughter. And what I realized during that time was that the root cause of the problem was not what was happening, but the fact that I'd taken Nikita away from her dad, because that was the only family that she knew at that time. She was 10 years old, and she kept that inside her for so many years, and she expressed it in a different way. So she expressed it by going out with boys that were uh, basically pulling her down, controlling her, manipulating her, emotionally manipulating her. So all the strategies that I was learning, then I realized that what I needed to do was to listen more. And that's why when I said earlier that the active listening is the first one, is because as parents, I feel that we don't often listen enough to our children. And then after that, once we start to listen, then we are able to communicate with them. And I see that at school as well. So our relationship, we started rebuilding our relationship, and then she left this guy after 3 years. There were a lot of things that happened in between, but I could write a book about it, so I'm not going to keep you on, sharing all of this. But after 3 years she left him, and then she had to leave him because she felt threatened, because he went back again to jail, but he started sending death threats. So she had to leave the country. So she went and she moved to Crete. And some other stuff happened in between. But after, I would say, probably nearly 2 years, she found some kind of stability. And during that time, there was also the COVID. And during the COVID, the because I teach a lot of teenagers, a lot of my clients are teenagers outside of the school hours. And what I was finding in those teenagers was that the teenagers were complaining about how teacher were not listening to them. So we were again in the, in the listening, and teacher were not listening to them. They were just barging them with homework, work, but work that weren't even being corrected. And some of the students were hearing the teachers' voices in their mind, and they were like, Miss Sunday, I hate that teacher. So at that time, although I was teaching the language, I stopped teaching, but we were doing the language in a different way. We were doing the language through conversation, but the conversation became psychological conversation, and actually, I would say coaching, uh, coaching lessons, where I would put the NLP, all my NLP and the hypnotherapist, everything that I'd learned in the past and put in practice with my daughter as well. I started doing that in my own teaching, and I discovered that I'd got a pretty big, deep passion about helping teenager. And then I started seeing that by getting closer to the students, I started seeing that the root cause again was not really what was happening at school, but the root cause was mainly what was happening at home. Some of the secrets, some of the, things that had happened in the past that made the student feel the way that they were, which was very often feeling unheard. So I started putting all this coaching into all this learning into a kind of coaching. And then during the COVID, I was basically coaching without knowing I was coaching. So when I realized that I was actually coaching, then I decided to take the qualification. So I went, and for a year I went and qualified as a teen coach, but I did that along with Nikita. So Nikita joined me. So the both of us qualified as teen coaches. So,
Amazing.
and today, basically, this is what I'm doing. I'm doing more teaching than coaching. The teen coaching, I will go full time into that from next year, because I'm still in full time teaching at the moment. But coaching, coaching teenagers, and seeing parents and teenager reconnect is like, something that, it's more than a satisfaction inside. It's like life changing,
Mm,
because that, the parent and the teenager are going to walk into a path, of happiness rather than struggle. And very often, um we think that it's going to take years. It took me a long time to reconnect with my daughter, but that the reason it took me such a long time is because myself, I didn't have the tools, the strategies in place. But
mm,
it doesn't have to take weeks, months, or years to reconnect with a teenager, because when you've got the tools, when you've got the right tools and you've got the right strategies, and you apply them straight away, it doesn't matter how long it takes after. It's about the process and the step and the progress. So it's about, looking at the progress rather than the outcome, because the progress is what will get you closer to your child. And it doesn't matter how old they are, whether they are children, teenager, or even young adults or adults. The process is the same, the strategies are the same. Some strategies would work for some families and some will not. So when some strategies are not working, you have to keep going. You can't give up. You have to keep going. Try different one until one works, because eventually one strategy will work.
Your story is so heart-wrenching, Sandy. It really is. And you know what struck me is that you drove every single weekend to see her father. And even though you did all that and did everything that you could for her to see him, and that it was him that didn't come see her, and so it was totally not your fault, but that was the reason behind it, even
The
though you did everything you possibly could to
Yeah,
keep the relationship going. And you didn't know that that was the thing until you went deeper with the
yeah,
NLP.
yeah,
Any ladies watching, there are things that might have happened that you think that aren't the root cause, that are feel totally not related to what's going on right now, could be the reason. And
yeah,
that's like mind-blowing, really, isn't
yeah,
it? To have that, that realization.
yeah,
And at the other time, there would been nothing that you could have done more than you did for her to see her dad.
yeah. That's
It's
correct.
just that just blows my mind.
Yeah,
I know when you're going through perimenopause and menopause and beyond, and your hormones are either fluctuating or depleting, and you're struggling with all your own stuff going on, and then having that with teenagers in the house as well, and dealing with the stuff and not feeling heard and not feeling listened to, it could just really, blow up, can't
yeah,
it? So
yeah.
to have someone like you in their life to help them with those tools is just phenomenal. I'm really grateful that you're a part of the team of the experts that I've got in the group.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you for being vulnerable. You brought a tear to my eye.
I was, it wasn't meant to do that.
But you've
You've
got
just,
a happy ending and you work now with your daughter doing the
yeah.
team coaching. So that's a massive happy ending to that story.
No, I
So,
just want parents, whoever is listening right now, to know that there is hope,
yeah.
but to not give up. No matter what happens, you cannot give up.
Oh, thank you
So
for sharing, Sandy. I really appreciate it.
you're very welcome, Joe. Thank you so much for having me. And
Enjoy
what you're
the
doing
rest
is
of your day.
beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'm sending you a
Thank you.
kiss.
Bye.
Lots of love.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.